Namaskar and welcome to Daily Global Insights, episode 290. A shout out to our viewers to like our program so it can reach its maximum potential. Today is Monday, the 6th of December, and here are some salient news items for the day. President Joe Biden and Vladimir Putin to hold a video call Tuesday to discuss the fears of Russian invasion of Ukraine, among other things. Sree, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel, sir. It's our honor and pleasure to have you on board as a co-host. You are doing the bulk of the heavy lifting. I just do the third downs. And your thoughts on what is going to happen in this online summit between Joe Biden and Vladimir Putin?
No, you're not doing the third down, sir. You're doing the touchdown. So I have to I have to deliver the ball. So for you to do the most important thing, in the football field. Good morning to everybody, and good day to all. And very happy to be here on Monday morning to kick off, I think, a very exciting week in many fronts. Political, geopolitical, as well as the economic front. It's very fascinating that they have agreed, and the call has been set up at a very rapid time slot. It looks like the meeting is happening on Tuesday, which is December 7th. And I'm putting this in context. We'll touch this late. December 6th, Vladimir is supposed to be meeting Prime Minister Modi in transit, is going to spend about 6 hours. Then we have this meeting on Tuesday, which is December 7th. It's fascinating. I think that the agenda seems to be not only Ukraine, but just the broader discussion and dialogue that is to take place. So I think that they're going to cover Belarus. They're going to cover Ukraine. I think they're going to cover, the Nord Stream pipe. They're going to cover some of the strategic incursions and strategic issues around both Afghanistan. There's a meeting that's likely to come up in Afghanistan. Plus, of course, what's happening in Japan, because Russia has got some incursions in the Pacific in Japan. So I think these are the broad range of agenda items. Of course, last but not least is Iran and Syria. I think those two topics will also feature, because Iran and Syria, both Iran is on the nuclear side, and Syria, there seems to be still skirmishes that are going on, where both Russia and US are impacted.
And Biden's poll numbers continue to plummet and falls below 50% amongst young Americans aged 18 to 29, and across the board, it falls to 36% as policies falter. Siddharji, Biden administration has been stuttering from one error to another, many of those self-inflicted, and now they are going back and doing exactly what Trump was doing in terms of like the immigration, the wall, trying to quote the same rule to keep people in Mexico. Sridharji, why this corollary for them to inflict this kind of self-inflicted wounds?
I think you're framing the issues in a very positive or in the right context. I just don't have any answers. Mr. Joe Biden seems to, he's dealing with a whole bunch of irrational people. And when you're dealing with a whole bunch of irrational factions within your group, then you make a policy decision on the run. His policy decision seems to be on the run as a knee-jerk response to the fallouts that are coming from some of the policies. The one that you touched on, they opened the floodgates because that's what the progressive groups wanted them to do: open and transparent borders. So you got gushes of people coming in uncontrolled. Then they said, enforcement is illegal and enforcement is non-humanitarian. So they withdrew all the ICE and converted them into other types of officers from a monitoring point of view. They reduced the CBP, Customs and Border Patrol. So you have those gushes kind of coming in. Suddenly they realize that there is a plethora of people that have come in, and about 2 million in number, and many still apprehended. And many people, stood in the border, creating, an embarrassment. And then, of course, we are beginning to see both security issues as well as the COVID issues. So what do? You go back and say, okay, we'll try to build parts of the wall. Then you say, go back to the policy. So many things, and you still have, we'll touch on this item when that item pops up. So the story is that we're still beginning to see that the policies are not working, they're not supposed to work. And then you have this unfortunate, and which is why his poll numbers are going down very rapidly. You are supposed to have a high rating amongst the youth, especially who have much more liberal and social mindset and outlook. And there again, his numbers are slipping, sir.
And as crime rates and looting increases, security is heightened across major chains. LAPD over the weekend confirmed all 14 arrested over smash and grab thefts have been released. Sridharji, what is the point of catching them and then releasing them within a few hours for the theft, sir?
Catching them is police job because there was an alleged crime and a crime committed and there was reporting. So at least they didn't have a situation like in Minneapolis or in Portland, or in Seattle. So at least the police were able to apprehend. Then lo and behold, you have a justice system which says, he's a juvenile, he has to be released. Or, you have a bail system whereby you say you guys have to be, many of them were apparently released with no bail money. So therefore they were discharged. So it's almost like, I think we touched on this, what you're seeing is an LAPD pleading helplessness and all have been released. That decriminalization of a crime results in crime, not anything else. And that's what we are witnessing in United States.
As border infiltrations grow, Democrats come up with a new mantra. Let us curb inflation by using migrants to cut American wages, contradicting with minimum wage and social benefit agenda. Sridharji, one would be, inclined to think that this whole idea of bringing in illegal immigrants is to forcibly keep the wage, hourly wage substantially lower than 15, except that those don't go on the books. So you look good for election gimmicks, saying that we got the $15 an hour wage, but then there are many people being paid off the books.
No, I think that basically people being paid off the books is mostly in the farming sector, especially in the rural farming sector. Okay. But many of these people who are being allowed mainstream have not been employed in the services or adjacent manufacturing sector. Should they come in, then be given legal, illegal kind of permissions. So it begs the question, which is namely, how do you record these people? How do you then reward these people? How do you capture the essence of it in the economic system, even in the United States, while you continue to pay the minimum wage of $15 plus and benefits to the other people? What the government may be saying, I think, which they are not saying in such words, is you remember that the whole social build back better, as well as the $900 or $1 trillion package that the Biden released in December 2020. All of this package is targeted at money being given to these illegals. So there may be a dual approach going on here, which is the borrowed money of the US taxpayers being pumped into the hands of these people for other kinds of things, augmenting their settlement. And then, of course, they're giving them an employment at a concessional wage. So it is a double whammy, and truly it is not a wage deflation, but it is a wage augmentation through the social programs that is being enacted. But having said that, as a concept and as a policy, this is ridiculous to think that you have more migrant labor, the inflation will come down. The inflation is high, not just because of the labor force. The inflation is high because there is complete and total disruption in supply chains. There is a huge asymmetric issue between demand and supply. How you infiltrating with more people is going to solve the supply chain issues, which is plaguing the prices. So that is number one item. The number two item is, to a great extent, the inflation is also a manifestation of the rise in energy prices, which is a result of the lopsided policy that Biden administration, enacted, and we are witnessing the consequences of it, 10 months into that regime in the United States. And to the extent now we are pleading the OPEC plus countries to increase the oil supplies. Everybody is now, including my wife, is complaining, in California, maybe, I don't know, $6. In New York, it is $4 plus a gallon at the pipe. It has increased from $2.30 to $2.50. That's a lot. That's beginning to, bite into the wallet of the people, which is the cause of the inflation, not anything else.
Absolutely, sir. And we all know that gas costs have a direct cost effect and an indirect cost effect, because most of the goods are ferried or transported using, trucks and container lorries. And these things, every item that gets transported gets this gas tax added on top of whatever the other taxes are. So it's a very, you would think that somebody of the intellect of Biden, who's been in Senate for 40 plus years, wouldn't know these basic economics. Very, very sad. The Sixth Circuit Court rules against Biden administration in OSHA vaccine mandate lawsuit, including shifting the case to an alternate court. So what is the outcome of this, Sridharji?
Basically, this is the office, the Safety and Healthy Association officials, basically nurses and frontline healthcare workers. They have effectively objected to the mandatory vaccine mandates, or mandatory mandates to have vaccination. So the cases were aggregated because we talked about this and taken to the Sixth Circuit Court. So what the Department of Justice is, first of all, they asked it to be dismissed. If it is not dismissed, they want it to be transferred from Sixth Circuit to a much more compassionate alternate court. So effectively, not only the mandates have been banned, they have said you have no business and there is no authority to transfer this. So Biden has a double whammy on these mandates as well.
And U.S. Secretary of Defense has warned that China's military sorties are like a dress rehearsal for future operations against Taiwan. Sridharji, this thing now, according to Elmer, Taiwan has a lot of arms or I should say ammunition power to sort of tackle or take on China, even in the nuclear submarine area, because it is believed that that is the way that China is going to conduct the warfare, because you can't see it above the ground if in ICBM it's launched from inside a submarine, sir.
Yeah. Well, I think, I think Taiwan has fortified itself. Whether this is a political statement that is being made by General Defense Secretary Austin remains to be seen. There was another interesting piece of data that came over the weekend. The general confidence level in the U.S. Army has come down by about 11%. And also there's a growing concern that the U.S. Army is being politicized. So I think that whether the statement is being issued within that context, which is to say, look, we have a China threat, we have a China threat, we have a China threat, and China threat is imminent in Taiwan. We've talked about this, and again, for Mr. Austin to come and, to make this statement sounds little out of place. As Mr. Elmer pointed out, I think Taiwan is capable now. It has equipped itself, plus it has got a good set of neighbors. I believe that it has enough deterrence measures to tackle. But at the end of the day, you cannot be an occupier. This is not Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, China had more than 20 to 25 years to infiltrate and entrench itself with its own hooligans so that it could clamp down and do what it do. In Taiwan, it's going to take another 20, 25 years if it occupies. And as well as, there is a lot of resistance amongst the Taiwanese, and they do not want to be fought. So it's not just, having an attack, but whether you can capture the minds of the people and whether you can capture the minds of the international community, especially they are facing crisis on many fronts, including a complete boycott of their Winter Olympics.
Omicron spreads across the United States to more than 6 states. Fully vaccinated is still below 60%, and at least one vaccine at 71%, and booster stands at 13.7%. India vaccinates 50% of its eligible population, and the active cases dip below 100,000. India is keeping a close watch on Omicron. Most cases detected are from travelers arriving from Africa. India's Omicron cases stand at less than 10, and there are three states primarily where they have been detected, Sridharji: Karnataka, Maharashtra, and Gujarat.
Indeed, sir. I think you have first-hand experience having landed in New Delhi and gone through the protocols in terms of, you are tested immediately and you get your results almost, 6, 7, 8 hours into your, when you have checked in. So I think that there is enough safety protocols that have been put in, but it can still, I keep saying this and advocating PGurus is the only platform that has talked about that this virus can be manually simulated. I don't recall the show, but please go back and watch PGurus Sree's interview, where there's a detailed coverage as to how, potentially this could be triggered outside of people carrying, physically carrying the virus from traveling from one part of the world to another part of the world. Because I look at the United States and I look at Europe, it's not possible that people are carrying this virus.
And Russian President Vladimir Putin will arrive in India on December 6th for a short visit, and military discussions seem to be the top priority. The new Quad, comprising of India, Israel, UAE, US, will hold its first meeting in Dubai, according to Israeli Ambassador to India, Naor Gilon. Sridharji, as part of this, UAE has also placed a $19 billion order for 80 Rafale jets and 12 military helicopters in deepening their defense and strategic partnership with France. So one wonders, what is the role of India in this Quad, sir?
Well, I think it's interesting. I think without some tacit support from India, remember UAE is especially in Abu Dhabi and a couple of areas within the Emir of the Emirates. You will find that there is very strong US bases and F-16s. So it's a remarkable achievement that France has been able to win a sizable order, especially the Rafale jets. Who else has Rafale jets in the region? And it is India. Who else has a very strong defense and economic and also security tie-up with UAE? It is India. Who else is playing a significant role is India, Israel, and UAE. Remember the trade corridor in which we have covered. So there would have been a lot of notes and other stuff exchanged between India and UAE, and France would have probably sought India's help as well. Possibly not, but it's not coincidental that the two adjacent nations, have very strong, what you call, of Rafale. Remember, another important point, that when Rafales flew from France into Indian Rajasthan, as well as I think a UP air bases, the refueling occurred in UAE.
Right.
Refueling. So I think that there is a lot of linkages. But to me, in my view, it's very positive. As far as this quadrilateral meeting is concerned, it is going to happen very soon in December. That's also very interesting because I know Israel, UAE, we have covered this in Daily Global Insights. Israel, UAE, and India have been having. The party which has jumped in here is United States, and the party that is likely to jump into this potentially is France, because France has an important role because they have been reaching out to the Middle Eastern countries or West Asian countries. So it's a very, very interesting development.
Sir, India is going to ink a deal with UAE for free trade agreement also, and this would become, an even more stronger relationship once that is signed.
Indeed, so I think UAE is either the second or the third largest trading partner. United States is the first, China is the second, but in terms of exports, I think UAE is the number two trading partner of India. So therefore, or number two or number three. But this all augurs well as far as India is concerned.
India is exemplary in publishing its foreign exchange market intervention, tells US Treasury, and allow exchange rate to move flexibly to reflect its economic fundamentals. The United States keeps a close watch on Indian FX reserves. I'm sure they do it on many other countries. And the US has been the largest trading partner of India as it relates to merchandise since 2018 to 19 but in 2020-21, they had a dip because of COVID. Now, the April 2021 to October period in the current fiscal year, US is again the largest trading partner with a trade volume of $67.41 billion. Sir, this is truly encouraging, sir, because 67 billion is no chump change. And that most of that is going into India's foreign exchange reserves.
It is. I think that we have talked about this, which is including the investments, because there are three things. One is trade, services, and investments. When you combine these three, India's bilateral relationship or bilateral volume is somewhere close to $200 billion. And especially because India was also importing substantive amount of crude and also exporting it back, taking the refined back on behalf of United States. So there was a net benefit flowing on into Indian kitty. But to what extent that has been reduced in the present setup, I don't know, because the United States has now dipped to a net importer rather than a net exporter. But the trade investments is very positive as far as the numbers go. I think US is keeping a very close watch on the Indian reserves because it is a pretty impressive number, which we had consistently said. And they are watching to see India doesn't become another China, building a fortress kind of a balance sheet relative to its GDP. On a $10 to $11 trillion, $12 trillion nominal GDP, the Chinese reserves is about 2.9 trillion. So if you extrapolate that India is around $3 trillion, you are in the mark of about 2.4, $2.5 trillion if you just quadruple the numbers in terms of, so it's keeping a close watch and it's making sure that there is no exchange rate manipulation, to boost the reserves, and to get this score is a very positive thing.
And Iran is again in the news for the wrong reasons. The Natanz reactor has had one more incident, which Iran is playing down, saying it was because of an air defense drill. But Bennett, the Prime Minister of Israel, continues to stress that no nuclear discussions with Iran is possible until the enrichment is stopped. Sridharji, what do you think? Do you think that again Israel is trying to kind of put the brakes on Iran?
Israel, we have covered, Israel will always put brakes. Israel will choose all options available at its discretion to make sure that Iran is not nuclear. Israel takes no chances and no prisoners. Israel does not believe in anyone other than itself. We reported it a couple of days ago based on an internal report that in the April centrifuges neutralization or the blast in the Central Hall occurred because Israel had Mossad had 12 scientists and, and potentially they caused. Now this happened on Saturday, and the news making the Jewish post and Jewish headlines is third time lucky. So they probably did little more damage at the same important nuclear power station where the enrichment occurs. And then Israel has acknowledged that there was a big blast and it could be due to some air drills they were conducting. They're not going to stand up and say it's a sabotage. So, but the fact is that it has happened. Basically, Bennett is Israeli defense minister also made the statement, we are prepared to do what we need to do, right? So, that's one nation's way, which I think there are two nations where I have. One is Israel and second is Russia. Russia doesn't, tinker around either. China may play, crybaby stuff, but not the Russians or the Israelis.
And Arabic media confirmed that several rockets fell near American base in eastern Syria. Also, an explosion targets Russian military vehicle in Syria, making its rounds. Sir, they are taking aim at both US and Russia. That might not be a very smart strategy, isn't it?
But it depends on which groups are. There's so many groups are fine. Our triple I's coverage as to why this triple I will become a melting point as US withdrew from Iraq. You are beginning to see the remnant outcomes of it. And you can see that these fellows are firing, and ISIS-K is now active. They felt that the ISIS-K was neutralized. Now ISIS-K is active. They're firing. The rebels are firing, which we know are the Iranian Contras, who is firing at the Russians because the Russian regime supports Bashir al-Assad, which probably may not be sympathetic to the Iranian aspirations. So therefore, they are also targeting the Russians making rounds. It's also possible that the Turkish who are not necessarily sympathetic to Bashir al-Assad, are also doing stuff. It's also possible ISIS-K, because the reason is the Peshmerga or the Kurdish region, which put up a stout defense against the ISIS. So they want to neutralize. So it is a potpourri of issues. But the fact is, both Russia and United States is at the receiving end because of various factions fighting for exerting their assertiveness in that volcanic melting point called the Three-Eye region, as we coined it.
Sridharji, P5 nations of the OIC are going to be meeting in Islamabad on December 19th to discuss the Afghan crisis. Which countries form this P5, Sridharji?
Permanent five, United Nations permanent five countries. That's what they call P5.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so which is United States, which is UK, which is Germany, which is France, and which is, I think it is France, Germany. It's United States, Russia, China, France, and
UK.
Five nations plus EU, all representatives. You had raised a question, which is namely, will Indian aid get through to Afghanistan directly, or will Pakistan come in the way? I think we are finding the answers to those questions, which is namely, so Pakistan wants to say, you want to give aid to Afghanistan, you please come and meet me in December 18th in Islamabad. Let us have a show, and we will be the conduit, and you give me the money, I will send it, rather than Indians trying to sing. So they're effectively sabotaging the Indian efforts. It's not drawn on India. India will tell them. India will tell the world, okay, no problem. You want to give, you give. There's no issues. So I think it's a little mischievous, but what they will do, Russia and China will push for this meeting to happen, will happen. Whether it will translate into aid remains to be seen.
And France and Europeans working to open joint mission in Afghanistan, says Macron. Sridharji, right now, no country has recognized Taliban's regime in Afghanistan. Why the rush now?
No, it's not the recognition. It is a representative office.
One step below. Okay.
Yeah, one step below. So I think Saudi have just opened a representative office. Qatar has a representative office. Qatar has been officially hosting Taliban without actually saying we recognize Taliban, right? Because they want to toe the global line. Then you have the United States has subcontracted its representative office to Qatar, and so naturally EU and and France don't want to be left behind. So they have a representative office in the event of any adversarial event that potentially could occur. Again, we stressed the importance of, in the map that we drew, the Afghanistan, Iran, and Qatar, the Central Asian republics. So therefore, it is again another big melting pot. So it's important that these fellows have a footprint.
And Belarus, Ukraine, Russia tensions continue with little signs of tapering as Europe intensifies lockdowns with Omicron spreading across Europe. Protests continue. Sridharji, quick wrap up on Omicron and then we can go to markets.
Now, Omicron is rapid in Europe. You can see its footprint across. It is making sporadic entry into Asia and India. It is visible, including Australia and New Zealand. While it is also reasonably sporadic within United States, but they expect this to accelerate in the first quarter next year. I don't know what their data is, but certainly based on the data, the indications are that they would expand. The things likely to expand. But clearly, Europe is at the forefront of the Omicron virus. Cause and source is unknown, except that these mutations have multiple mutations. The data that is coming out is that it is less harmful, but it is contagious. That's the message that is coming out. It is very clear.
Common cold is contagious.
Well, there you go, sir. So I mean, so basically, maybe who knows? That's all it is. But what they're saying is that it does penetrate through the existing vaccine protocols. Hence, they're recommending that you need to have the boosters. So I think that's. But there is an indication from the financial markets, based on whatever data they have seen. This is coming from financial markets, that there is a potential possibility for in the first half of next year to have an economic downturn caused by these consequences of this virus. That is coming from more in the financial market side.
And let's take a quick look at markets, Sridharji. Let us know what you think, how the markets performed last week and what to expect this week.
The markets, almost all indexes went down. If you want the number, we can kind of quickly look at the numbers. The markets were down all of last week. Went up, went down, went up 900 points, went down 500 points, went down again. So what we have is that, on Friday it finished about 60 points down, the S&P, the Dow Jones, around 34,580, and then the S&P finished 38 points, around 4,538. Look, 4.7 was the year-end target, which is way past the 4.5 originally they said. So we are way below the predictions. But having said that, it did lose close to about 1.5% overall across the indexes. NASDAQ lost about 300 points. Usually when there is this kind of an issue, the tech stocks or the growth stocks take an impact. So therefore, you saw the market, NASDAQ come. The good news is the oil went into the 66, 69 band. But that's one of the positive news. It was below 65. But it marginally went back up around to that 69. It depends on OPEC is going to push. Amongst all the news is the interest rate, the 10-year Treasury bonds went to 1.38 from about 1.7. So that's a 32 basis points. So that is the gyrations around the various factors, across the bonds and energy as well as in the indexes of the equities markets. The cryptos took a big hit and they came back. It was around 49,000 Bitcoin. It's made its way to around 58, 59. That's the crypto as we speak. And the Ethereum, 48 is Bitcoin. It hasn't made its way back. Ethereum is around 4,500 to it's about 4,071. So that made a marginal progress. So we'll begin to see the pressures on the crypto whenever you have, abnormal market conditions driven by pandemic. But my feeling is that it will still, hit that 60,000 and 4,500 to 5,000 mark on the Ethereum side as we reach the end of the year, because there's a lot of money flows going into that specific segment. What holds gyrations again in the markets? There are three important things for the next week. One is the consumer price index. It's already 6.2% October. The markets are expecting those numbers to be higher, which means the inflation is creeping up. The second is whether there is going to be any further changes to the Fed policy on the interest rates. Clearly, they are announcing that they are bringing down the bond purchase program. That means there's plenty of liquidity, and so which implies that the free money that was available is not going to be available next year. So that's the second important parameter. And I think the third parameter is obviously, where does the pandemic stand? That is, these are the three biggest in the minds of the people: inflation, the Fed program, and pandemic. And we'll continue to see volatility in the next week because we're not expecting a clear rainbow emerging out next week. But December, as we said, as we have predicted, will eventually settle down and finish the year to be a good year for all of us.
And that wraps up our show for today. We'll be back again bright and early tomorrow. Do tune in. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful